Like a lot of things, there's no right way and sometimes no wrong way to do stuff. I was looking at how to mount stuff on my reloading bench. My first idea was I drill a hole and do this one-handed, and the range has all these either the Russian or the British rim-based shells. Drill a hole, I can drop my shell in it. Now what happens is, let me get my screws out here. Now what happens is that when I want to mount something, I just pop this up, take a bolt, mount whatever I want to mount, and on the bottom put a wing nut. It was actually a pretty good situation. There is a little hump to this. So then I thought, well, let's try something else. So I went to Lowe's and got some of these nuts. And these are mainly used for furniture. They go in the bottom, and then when you screw the furniture tight, everything works. So they require a small hole because it's for a small bolt. My problem is I had drilled out some of these big ones, which meant this thing wobbled in there, and if you can see where the little spikes go, it's almost impossible to get them lined up nicely. But that was the only size they had at Lowe's. So I went to eBay, naturally, and found some bigger ones, which are more the size I needed. So with that, I have a bunch of screws. I'll take this one out. I can show something. That are bigger in diameter, so you can mount stuff a little heavier, a little stronger mounts. I would imagine it'd be very hard to break a screw that size. But I just felt more comfortable. Plus I had the holes already made. So I found these type screws. And the advantage is that once they're screwed in there, they're flush. So no matter what you do, it's what I had before is if I mounted something here and I had that hump, I couldn't get it flush on the table. But now with this type of mounting, it's no problem to come in here. Now these screws obviously are just a little too short. But anyway, so now this sits flush on this screw, but it would not have sit flush on the top of this head. Even though it looks nice, it reminds me of surveyor marks, if you've ever seen surveyor marks. So I went ahead and bought a bunch of these nuts off eBay and put them underneath. Now the next thing I found out is these are made in furniture, so when you screw something together, it stays together. Now when you unscrew it, there's not a lot to hold this in place. It basically, those little spikes hold it from turning when you screw it together. So the nut goes into the wood and it stays there. When you unscrew it, it's very easy to push these out, which is a pain in the neck. When you're putting the screw back in, if you push a little too hard, you put that out, or you can knock it out. So the next solution to the problem, pretend this is the bottom. We're looking at the bottom of the bench. I got some sheet metal screws, which have just a little lip. All I need to do now is on the bottom, drill a hole right next to, drill a hole right next to the edge. Not in the valley, because if you do it in there, you're close to the spikes. If you're close to the spikes and you put a screw in there, you're going to really weaken the wood. So you drill a hole by one of these upper spots, right against it, right next to it. Then when you run the sheet metal screw in, you can use a wood screw, you can use like a round-headed wood screw, anything that's got a lip on it, that you can now hook this in position so it can't be pushed out. It doesn't have to be a very strong mount. I mean, it's just, the only problem is when you're pushing the screw in and screwing it, you can knock these things out. So this just keeps you from doing that. I don't know if I can get, let's see, I got a light. There you go. So it's no big deal to mount those little screws on there. It holds everything in. The other thing you want to keep track of is, or keep in your mind, the screws I put in here are not long enough to mount anything. The reason being, I wanted that screw, when it's in the bench, not to be sticking way out of the bottom. If I used the bolt that I would use for mounting, it would stick out the bottom. And on my bench here, I have some stuff. I use this. There's Dylan stuff, and there's mech. So I use those for shelves. And if I had the bolt sticking down, I wouldn't be able to pull this out. So that makes it messy. So now you need a bolt, or screw rather, just for tightening this thing up, or cleaning it up, and another one for mounting something. But all in all, it makes the bench very nice. Everything is smooth, and I can mount all sorts of different things on here. I can even show you some of the stuff I mount on here. I'll get them out. One of you might be asking, well, why don't you just mount it there and not go through all the fuss of this? Well, this is a primer, and I don't use it that often. But when I reload rifles, I don't do many rifle rounds at a time, maybe 20 or 40. When I go higher, obviously, I use my Dylan. So I might want to use this and I might not want to. So that gives me, these two holes are for that. Sometimes I want to work on something and I need a bench, a vise. This is going to tip over and fall on my foot, and I won't like that. So we'll do this. So 3 of these holes, I can mount this. The reason it's hanging over is because when the vise is on there, I want swing for the handle, so the handle sits out here. This I use very seldom, but when you need a vise, it's nice. And once again, using the larger screws instead of the smaller ones, like over here, I feel it's a better holding job. I'm just going to put this over here someplace. And I can take off the drill press. I can mount this vise if I need to. A lot of times I just use it as a holding thing and I don't really have to mount it, but I can use one of the screws on there to mount that. And I mentioned the star that I use for 38s and 45s. And I also have a lubicizer that I have all the dies and sizing for just about anything else I reload. Star lubricators. And once again, I have 2 holes for them. And if, depending on I'm doing 38s or 45s with these, I would use those 2 holes on there. Doing rifles, rounds normally, if I want to trim the cases, I can screw this down with one mount and be able to trim the shells. Kept a little box here to keep the Allen wrench and the heads for holding the bullets, or for holding the case. And then this side is the trimmer that you can switch for outside the case or inside the case. Once again, I don't use this that often. I don't only size rifle. So when I'm doing some rifle rounds, I put this out here. It's easy to put out. Take it away and hide it someplace for later. And last but not least is rock chucker, which I just got my finger stuck in the stupid thing. There you go. So that's 2 holes I can mount that. So as you can see now, I have a nice work area, which I try and keep clean. But at any time, I can put other items in that I need to work on. There's an advantage of having these holes. There's no way I could have all this stuff mounted on this bench and function. One more item that may be useful or not useful. If you notice, there's a hole way back here. There's also this square outline. Wonder what that's for. Well, I reload shotguns, which uses a mech. So now I have a hole that I can mount that in there. If I don't want to use it, I can fill up the hole. I could use a military case, one of those Russian ones, or the base of a 410. But right now the mech, when I reload the mech, I can set the mech on here. It keeps it stable. I have these rims all the way around. So if some shot drops in there, or powder, we'll go with shot first. Oh crap, drop some shot. Now what do I do? Well, here's one of those Russian shells. This is going to be hard to do one-handed. Maybe I can pull this out and drop it a long way down. So now, with a mess, whether it be powder, remember I'd be doing this with 2 hands. I can just sweep all this stuff right down the little hole. And this, if there's some spilled powder and there's some spilled shot, and I don't know if it's just me, but I seem to always have some. What am I sweeping it into? This is a strainer for a sink. And whatever I go in there, the powder will come out the bottom. So it makes it nice and neat. When I'm reloading, I don't want that stuff rolling around and coming out. So I just keep one of those Russian shells, I guess this one's a British shell, in there to clog up the hole. Just an idea, but if you ever do the shotgun reloading, those pellets are going to roll all over the place. And something like this is very nice. When you're through with it, you just fill up the hole, take this away, and your bench is back to where you want it.